my 22nd annual meeting as the CEO of United Way of Anderson County, and obviously it is my last. I usually, even though everybody knows I like to talk, I usually try not to hog up the agenda, but today might be a little different. I have a lot of stories and things that I want to tell people about some very special people in the life of United Way during my time. I can try not to cry, but I feel sure the tears will come. It's bittersweet. I've loved it. It is definitely, for me, a labor of love, and I can't even imagine what life will be like without doing the United Way work every day.
And what else is going to happen in this meeting here today?
Well, today we really focused in on a lot of honoring of other people. That is one of my favorite things to do. I love to bring attention to the good that others do, and we're going to do a lot of that today. Absolutely, we are kicking off our new campaign. As we recovered from COVID, we've had an uphill climb to get back to where we want to be. We had been averaging 1.75 million for nearly 20 years before COVID. And when COVID hit, it has been more difficult to raise money. Last year, our goal was 1.65. We raised 1.71. And I am hoping that as we go into this next campaign, we will be able to get right back to that 1.75 million.
Nakia Davis from the Commercial Bank in Honeypath. I serve as president and CEO there and also chair the United Way this past year. Well, United Way in itself is important to our community. This meeting today is just where we recognize a few of our key members throughout the year, our staff, and it serves as our annual meeting. And it's our 78th year. So United Way has been in our community for 78 years now, helping the homeless, the needy, and the hungry in Anderson County. And we're glad to do that and proud of what we've been able to do this past year. Well, Carol's a staple in our community, and she has been for many years, but has served United Way so selflessly over the last 20 years. And it's hard to put into words what she means to this community and inevitably to United Way and what she's been able to do in her 20-year tenure here, over 20 years here at United Way. My name's Nakia Davis, and I've had the pleasure of serving as the chair of United Way this year. What an honor it has been. And I would like to welcome you to our 78th annual meeting of United Way of Anderson County. Today, we owe a debt of gratitude to Douglas McDougall Sr. and Frank Brownlee for their foresight of sharing the community chest in Anderson to help the less fortunate throughout our community, where hunger, poverty, and homeless was abound. And 78 years later, here we are today, the United Way of Anderson County, and we're still helping those in poverty, those who are hungry, and those who are homeless, and much, much more. As you can see on the front page of the United Way annual report at your seat, the United Way, in partnership with organizations, served 56,000 Anderson County residents through the pillars of education, financial stability, health, and basic needs. There's not enough time here today for me to tell you about what all the United Way does in this community. We'd be here all afternoon, but I do want to highlight a few of the initiatives. Grant funding to 19 agencies. Our Financial Stability Center at AIM prepared over 1,000 free tax returns through the VITA program. One of our newest programs is Camp Mariposa, which is a free year-round addiction prevention and mentoring program in partnership with the Luna Network and Clemson University Learning Center. And our AmeriCorps program. We would also like to thank the work of Women United under the leadership of Ayla Chapelier and Tina Brown. And in partnership with our school districts and the YMCA, 125 students were able to take advantage of intensive reading instruction and fun activities. Eliminating childhood hunger is a priority of United Way. And during the school year, our weekend snack pack program sends food and uplifting notes home with 750 elementary age kids. And this year we partnered with AIM Summer Food for Kids program and provided 5,000 snack pack bags. And thanks to Tina Brown. And a big thank you to Tina Brown's leadership. We also provided over 5,000 books for this program. So AIM and Tina, thank you for your hard work. While we have recognized several staff members by name, I want to ask all of United Way staff to please stand. This is the wheels who keep this thing in motion, and we appreciate what you do. I had a quote that a buddy of mine, a banker from the lower part of the state, and he made a comment last weekend. You know, in United Way, it's like a duck. On top, it looks like it's smooth, running smooth, but up under that water, those feet are paddling, and I can promise you they are around here. Carol and her staff do an unbelievable job, so thank you for what you do.
But I want to say today, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us. As I look around this room and I see so many faces, it makes me want to come around to each table and just give everyone a big hug. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you being with us today. And normally I would not be speaking at the annual meeting, but I guess when you're leaving, you can get anything you want. It's my last annual meeting, and I don't know if you noticed, but there's this special little astronaut on the front of the annual report. Really take a look at that. That was kind of a fun thing. So I am, again, so excited, and I promise that I'm not going to speak long. And the reason that I'm speaking is we felt like, because we have a lot of awards today, that we might shortchange a speaker invited to come in and say, oh, you only have this little bit of time. So I thought I would just share a few things with you today. And I will try, you know, there are some people that get up and cry every time they speak. I promise I'm not usually that kind of person, but there will probably be some tears today. So I thought about my upcoming retirement, and I thought about all the people. I couldn't help but think about, my wonderful staff members over the past few years, the volunteers, the donors that I have had the opportunity to work with, and it has been such a wonderful experience. But so many of those people like me now have gray hair, some have retired, some are in assisted living or nursing homes, and there are many of those who are now enjoying their heavenly rewards. And I know that I should not mention names, but I would remiss, I believe, if I didn't mention a few people that I feel like have been many responsible for me being here. In fact, I began to think about the group of people that peppered me with questions at my interview. I remember being at a table at what is now in the building where the chamber is. That was a bank at the time. And Richard Shirley was the banker, and his wife was the board chair, Rochelle Shirley. And they brought me in. There were literally 15 people interviewing me. I'm at this big table, and they're just, you know, one question after another. And I look back and I think, why in the world did they give me this job? It's beyond me. But Rochelle was my first board chair and did an amazing job getting me acclimated to United Way. And it's funny, one day, right after I got the job, we were going to be getting a $10,000 gift from Best Buy. So I called up Rochelle and I said, I really think you should go with me to accept this big check and be in the photograph and everything. And she says, no. She said, I'm only the board chair for the next few months. You will become the face of our United Way. And I really thought, she's just, and I'll only be here about 5 years. That's what I told my board when I first got elected. Wow, did I tell a big one. But over the years, my continuous mentor was my dear friend Kirk Oglesby. Every time I needed something that was beyond my pay grade, I called up Kirk and I'd say, I need to talk to you. And he'd come over and he'd sit and we would work out whatever it was I needed to know. I told him on many occasions he was the wisest man I ever knew, and he was certainly the E.F. Hutton of Anderson. When he spoke, people listened. Linda McConnell was my personnel chair for at least the first 10 years I was there. Wow, the unbelievable support that she gave me and advice over those years. And how could I not mention the incredible support of ANMED with CEOs John Miller, Bill Manson, and now William Kinley. We could not do what we do without ANMED. Then I think about people like Steve and Judy Darby, Myrtle and Ray Gillespie, Cords and Clinky Seabrook, and there's this guy named Bob Clardy who would always give me a Mr. Bibb on my visit to Michelin. I love it. I have lots of Mr. Bibbs. I think about the nonprofit directors that we've worked with over the years, and all of you and these people of the past have made indelible marks on my heart. From this statement, you can see why the engagement through our Youth Volunteer Corps in Young Philanthropists is so important. Most of the people that I mentioned are somewhere in that time frame of getting ready to retire, retired, or as I said, they have gone on. We have to build a pipeline of new leadership, and that happens, I think, especially through our Youth Volunteer Corps and our Young Philanthropists. We are building the next generation of amazing leaders with innovation and ideas that will take us and take this organization to the next place. You see, back in 1987, and I think I was a pretty young chick back then, I got elected to town council in the town of Pendleton. And not too long after I was elected, there was this insurance agent named Lawrence Carty. And Lawrence said to me, I've been the United Way Pendleton representative longer than I can remember. You're next. And I didn't say no because I never say no. And so I said, okay. And I got involved with United Way. It was back in the days when the CEO was a guy named Gary Godsey. Some of you old timers like me may remember Gary. I loved being on the campaign cabinet. And then one day, I was sitting in my office at the health department where I worked for Dr. Becky Campbell. Now, I wasn't a bigwig at the health department like her. I just sat down the hall. I was a little old health educator, but everybody on my health education team, of which I was a member, not the lead, would always tease me. When we can't find Carol, we know she's down the hall, brown-nosing Becky, because we talked all the time about great things going on in the community, and Becky was always so supportive of my desire and efforts to serve our community, even way back then. But there was this special day, I was sitting in my cube at the health department, and the phone rang. Back then, we had phones on the desk. Remember those days? And I answered, and it was someone from the United Way. And they said, we're calling to see if there is any possibility that you would consider being the vice chair of the campaign. Well, I almost fell out of my chair, and I really couldn't say yes fast enough. That meant that I would be the campaign chair in 1997-98. Well, that was just the time that I was running for mayor of Pendleton. So in that 1 year, I became the mayor of Pendleton and the United Way chair. Well, I'd only been the mayor for about a week or two, and I had this call. It was a little elderly lady, and on the other end of the line, she said to me, I'm preparing my last food, and I don't have any more money. She referred to someone that had told her to call me. Like, who calls the mayor to ask them for food? I thought. She said, Miss Tyson at Senior Solutions said that you would help me. And she says she's known you a long time. Maybe since you were a little baby. And I first thought, I can go get her a bag of groceries. And then I thought, that's probably not a good idea. How many more people would be at the mayor's office that needed food. So I told her, I said, if I can get your name and number, I'll call you back. So I called United Way. Remember, I'm the campaign chair. I thought they'll know what to tell me to do. Well, after calling them, it was so easy. They said, call Clemson Community Care. They feed people in Pendleton. They were so nice and said, just have her come in. We'll take care of her. They were a United Way agency. I knew that they were going to do what they said. So I called the little lady back and I said, I've set up a meeting for you to go in Clemson Community Care and they will be able to get you some food. She says, I don't have a way to get there. So the next day I picked her up. The strangest thing happened that day. She lived in the same government subsidized apartments where I had lived when I was about 4 and 5 years old. And I drove up, got her in the car. We drove to Clemson and we just little chatted. But when we arrived at Clemson Community Care, I walked her to the door, and as I reached to open the door, there was a big sign on the door that said, United Way helps here. Can you imagine the pride I felt as the United Way campaign, seeing that sign and knowing that the work that we were doing to raise money was going to help this little woman that was right there with me? We got into Clemson Community Care. They treated her with such respect and dignity. And as we were leaving, they assured her and me that if she ever needed food again, they were a phone call away. So as we drove home, we shared more stories. And she told me that she had worked all of her life as hard as she could as a housekeeper. And she had made enough money to send her grandchildren to college. But she said they don't come around much anymore. That really bothered me. You see, because I loved my grandmother more than anyone I've ever loved in my life. I was heartbroken. And I thought, what can I do to make the life of my grandmother better? And one of the things we loved to do was go to lunch. And at this time, she was already at a point where she wasn't driving. So I would pick her up for lunch. And I'd say, where do you want to go? She would quickly say, Burger King. She loved Whoppers. And I know that as I told this story, no doubt, at my first annual meeting as CEO, but it still touches my heart. You see, I'm still working for Dr. Becky Campbell as she works and serves on our United Way Board of Directors. So Becky, I want you to come forward. And you see, Clemson Community Care, under the direction of Executive Director Karen Carter, still continue to feed and care for the residents of Pendleton. Karen couldn't be here today, but we do have a representative from Clemson Community Care, and I'd like to ask her to come down front. Tom and Pam Roos not only served me the first Whopper in Pendleton, but they served it to me on a silver engraved platter. We had planned for that to be for my grandmother, but she passed away just before they opened the Pendleton Burger King. But Tom and Pam Roos have been supporters of mine in so many ways over the years, and I would like to ask them to come up and join me. And last but not least, Jamie Nemo was my barometer at United Way for about 18 years of my 22 as CEO. She once told me, quit telling that story, people are tired of it. So I probably quit telling it for the last 20 years,
but I thought I had to tell it today. It means so much to me to say that United Way helps so many places, and sometimes it is that places that we forget or we don't remember. But Jamie, I'd like you to come on down because you have been so important in the life of United Way, and in particular, my time at United Way. And today, as I stand here with these special people, I want to present to each one of them a presidential medallion thanking them for supporting me and supporting United Way over the last 22 years. Thank you. Love y'all. Thank you. I love my wallers. I have
Good.
Sorry, sorry. Sorry, partner.
always. So what, you want to do a group picture?
No, I'll
Okay.
just get right here.
Thank you, Liz.
Yes.
And, really looking forward to this year. I don't want to rehash anything that Nakia said, but I do want to point out one thing because this was my United Way moment. Does the number 750 per week, does anybody remember him saying that a while ago? What was that about? Snack packs. Good answer. All right. Audience participation time. Okay. All right. 750 kids within walking distance of where we are today get to eat on the weekends because of what United Way does. Great job, Anderson County. Let's keep that up. I want to talk a little bit about this year's campaign, Reaching for the Stars. And if you're like me, you have gray hair or no hair whatsoever. When you first hear Reaching for the Stars, you may think of Casey Kasem, because that was the first thing that popped in my mind, the top 40 countdown every week. But I got to thinking about it. When does Reaching for the Stars, when does that really personify itself? And I couldn't help but think about children. Because the first time you take a small child outside, and there's not a whole lot of natural light, and there's no, it's dark, and there's no clouds in the sky, and you just see nothing but stars painted across the sky, what's the first thing they do? They reach. They reach. They reach because they're trying to touch greatness. They reach because they have absolutely no fear of failure. They reach because they have that childlike faith that they can indeed actually touch the stars. And by the way, the Bible winds up telling us later that that childlike faith will one day lead to us being able to touch the stars. And when they stretch out and they haven't quite touched them yet, they'll stretch it a little further. And I would challenge us as we're thinking about this year's campaign, Reach for the Stars. Let's keep those three lessons in mind. Let's have no fear, none whatsoever. Let's have faith that together we can achieve great things for Anderson County. And when we think we've stretched as far as we can stretch, let's stretch a little further. And I challenge all of us to keep that in mind over the next year as we go through this campaign. We really appreciate all the donors. Thank you so much for everything that you do. And we will just show a nice little kickoff video here and introduce the campaign to us.
Have had better lives because of the opportunity to work for this awesome company. They have offered higher than competitive wages in our area, great benefits, and a family-like atmosphere. But for us at United Way, they have shown their community spirit by being an excellent community partner through corporate gifts, employee campaigns, and their amazing annual golf tournament. Our hats off today to Michelin in honor of 50 years. Please give their representatives a hand as they come forward for their hard it is to get a plaque or something that's got tires on it. Ooh, we did it. A number of years ago, I was sitting in what was then called United Way of America's annual meeting in DC. And I was struck by the idea that they were giving the Spirit of America Award. And I thought, we can do that, the Spirit of Anderson. That award was hatched right on the spot. Today, it would be impossible to honor just one recipient. We have 5 Spirit of Anderson recipients. And listen to why. Over my time at United Way, we have been blessed by these recipients who have used their talents to let our community know about the remarkable things done by our great organization. When I first came to United Way, Beth Batson worked with us, and we were always calling Paul Brown, or as our campaign chair that year called him, Paul Brown News. We were always asking Paul to do something that would get us on YFF, or filming to do videos, and thankfully, we could always count on him. Today, we honor Paul Brown with the Spirit of Anderson Award. Paul, thank you for all that you have done for United Way, and especially allowing us to roast you a few years ago and making a little bit of money off of you. Thank you, Paul Brown. Our next recipient, I would just like to have $1 for every time he's taken my picture. You see, Ken Renard, an award-winning photographer, has been so good to United Way in his work at the Independent Mail, covering our special meetings and events. There are just not enough words to thank him. So Ken, I don't know who's going to take the picture, but you've got to come up and get an award. Over the years, Dead Horse Productions has always been there when needed to help United Way with projects and videos. Vic Avilas and Linda Lavole recently helped us launch our Jane Edna Hunter Empowerment Center in partnership with the Urban League of the Upstate. Now that is after, for years, we have worked together to create a documentary about Jane Edna Hunter's life. Linda and Vic, please come forward and accept your recognition. I would like for us to recognize Greg Wilson. I told Greg today he didn't really have to bring his camera, but if he wanted to, he could. I can't tell you how much I appreciate Greg. He is a lifeline to information about our community through the Anderson Observer. 3 years ago, Greg and I started doing a TV show for the county's TV channel called Anderson County Serves Here. He is great at the work he does, and he's always willing to help us when we have special events. But the thing that I like most about what Greg does is that he shines a positive light on our community, and he tries to inform the community of the good things happening And I'm glad that he considers United Way one of those good things. So Greg, let us honor you today with the Spirit of Anderson Award. Okay, last but not least, it is so important when you go to an event that you can actually hear what people are saying. Well, we have been partnering with Ben Phillips for years with Lights of Hope and other things, but more recently, we made a decision that we weren't going to have an event without Ben Phillips, because we know how frustrating it is when people can't hear what's going on. And with Ben, that never happens. He recently helped us with a huge event in Pendleton. It was for everyone in the county that we could get there in order to have the Clubhouse International CEO speak. It was quite a production. They wanted a lot of things. Ben did it, and he did it well. And you know what? He does it on the cheap. And Ben, we sincerely appreciate you, and we want you to come forward and be recognized. Today, we would like to recognize two of our valued board members. These are board members who have given their time, talents, and treasure to United Way. We call this award the Legacy Award. And it really is because these people have given an enormous amount of time to our organization. As you heard earlier, I said that Linda McConnell served as the personnel chair for 10 years. Well, the 10 years prior to that, Linda was our City of Anderson representative. So we kind of started this award to honor her 20 years of board service. I know that's a little bit like, why do you keep somebody that long? Well, what I've found is when I really like you, I might have to move you around a lot, but I want to keep you. And although we do not give this award every year, we do believe that today's recipients are truly deserving of this recognition. Leo Smith came on our board about 10 years ago. He served his term, and then we said, Leo, we need a new treasurer. So for the past 6 years, Leo Smith has been our dedicated treasurer. We could not ask for anyone better to do this job. He has overseen our finance information with our staff and make sure that everything is in order. There are times that I did not like what he had to say, but I knew that he had the organization's best interest at heart. He is knowledgeable in finance as a retired banker, and he is a caring soul for this community. Please recognize Leo Smith as he comes forward to receive his Legacy Award. Our next Legacy Award recipient is currently our longest serving board member. I brought him along when he was just a little whippersnapper. He first joined our community impact movement under Kirk Oglesby. No wonder he's been so good. He came onto our board and he has served as our community impact chair, our campaign chair, our board chair, our elected chair, and he is currently serving as our endowment chair. He is so deserving of this award, and it's the second time I've tried to give it to him. You see, a few years ago, we had this past chair's board lunch, and I was all set to give him the Legacy Award. When we got here to Tucker's and we were getting all the awards on the table, we opened up the box, and the plaque was blank. I'm like, well, this ain't gonna work very well. So I said, we'll do it another time. I really and honestly didn't think it would take this long, but it is my honor today, after 20 years of nearly 20 years of serving with United Way, that we honor Scott Robertson with the Legacy Award. Yeah, and I just want to double check. I've tried to look over the audience, but I just want to make sure. Is there a chance that Brian White is in the building? I haven't seen him, but I just want to double check. Okay. We have an award for Brian. We'll keep it for another event. He told me he thought he was going to have a conflict, but I just wanted to make sure. My last, aren't you glad, and final award for me to present is one that is very, very special. Prior to Juana Slade's reign as our board chair, she's the only chair in our history that has ever served 2 years. We thought we were going to do something really special, and we were going to change our board chair terms to 2 years. So Juana served her 2 years, and the next chair coming up was a guy named Doug Douglas, and you got to love him. He looked at me, he said, "I'm not doing this 2 years." So we went back to a 1-year term. But Juana wanted to recognize the impact of Kirk Oglesby on the United Way organization in our community. So today's recipient could not be a better choice. Nakia and I consulted on this because prior to Juana, this award had just been called the Chairman's Award. But today we honor this person for everything that she is in our community. She has been an exceptional volunteer for United Way for years, serving in areas of women's leadership and while chair of women's leadership on our board of directors, always participating in other things other than just women's leadership. She is not loud or boisterous. She simply gets the job done. She has served in many other volunteer capacities in our community. She and her husband have been major donors to United Way for as long as I can remember. And this year, while Tina Brown was working to rebuild women's leadership, now known as Women United, this woman jumped right back in. But again, not in a loud role, but in a very supportive role. She really supported the Power of the Purse event. Did I say she really supported? Well, I have to tell you that when we were tearing everything down at Dillard's, getting all the props out of the way, gathering up dirty cups and plates sitting around, loading our cars, there was Catherine Manson, right there with the staff as if she were getting paid just like us. No, she didn't have to clean up, but she did. She represents everything that I think Kirk Oglesby would be proud of. She is a deserving individual for this special award, and I know that Kirk is a special person to her. Please show Catherine Manson your love and appreciation as she makes her way up.